All right, leaders, good evening, everyone, wherever you're watching from. My name is Kingsley Chukuma. I'm the Executive President, Leaders Fort Company, and I officially welcome us all to the concluding session of our scholarship webinar for the month of September 2021. If you've attended previous sessions, you would also agree with me that it has been amazing so far. And tonight, again, it's going to be the concluding part of our webinars for this month, as we'll be hosting Ms. Raheemat Rafiu, who is here already with us. So I want to welcome us all once again. And then I would just like to let us know that we have to pay very close attention to everything Ms. Raheemat will be sharing tonight. So like I said, we'll start immediately because of time. Ms. Raheemat, you are welcome. Please, can you hear me from your end? Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Ms. Raheemat, we'll be beginning right away. Our Director of Programs will read out your profile, and then you will begin immediately. Because of the fact that we are using free Zoom, we'll be having a break after 30 minutes into the session, a 5-minute break, after which we will rejoin with the same link with which we joined in now. So the teaching will go on for 30 minutes, then stop for 5 minutes break. Then we'll rejoin with the same link for the concluding session, which can be an extension of the teaching session or a question and answer session. So I hope we all got that. So our director of programs now will take the profile of our speaker for tonight. Olaronke, are you ready, please?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. So you can kick off now.
Okay, this is the profile of our speaker for today. Raheemat Rafiu is currently a third-year PhD chemistry candidate in Missouri University of Science and Technology. Her research is primarily focused on synthetic organic chemistry with, with a concentration on fluorine chemistry. Raheemat received her Bachelor of Science degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria, where she studied chemistry and emerged as the best graduating student in her department. On LinkedIn, she creates content that's are centered on graduate school mentorship, motivation, personal development, and women empowerment. Leaders, please make welcome Ms. Raheemat Rafiu.
You're welcome, you can begin, You're welcome. We are honored to have you with us tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm just gonna share my slides now. Can you please give me access? All right.
Yes, you have access now.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's talk. I really love this topic because what determines the success of a graduate school application is not how much information you have. So many people have been trying to get a successful application for 2, 3, 4 years, and you see them in different WhatsApp groups, follow a lot of people on Twitter, follow a lot of people on LinkedIn, but it still seems like the process is so difficult. And in my conversation with a lot of prospective graduate school applicants, I can say that sometimes when I hear the kind of information people have heard, I'm always very surprised because some of this are not even true. And I would advise that if you hear something or if someone tells you something about graduate school application, just try to check in with someone else, try to get a second opinion. Don't say that, oh, the only person you know got the first class. So because you don't have a first class, you can't get a successful graduate school application. So to start with, what are the types of graduate school scholarships available? The first type is the external funding. There are so many scholarships. We have the Chevening, we have Commonwealth Scholarship, where anybody, regardless of the program you want to go for, whether it's a master's or a PhD, this funding, once you put in your application and you get accepted, they fund any program you want to go for. The only little disadvantage is this is always very competitive because your applications are put in with hundreds of thousands of people, which can make it quite difficult to get. Another type of scholarship is what is referred to as the teaching assistantships, which is the most common for most students studying in the United States. So for teaching assistantships, usually the mentorship I do are for direct PhDs. I never had a master's. I came here 1 month after my bachelor's degree graduation. For most programs, for a PhD, you necessarily do not need a master's. And the reason why it is structured that way is most of the coursework you will be taking for your graduate studies are master's level classes. I'm done with classes now, but when I started, the courses I took are the classes any master's graduate would be expected to take. So that's why in the United States, you are not expected to have a master's degree for most courses before you can proceed to get a PhD. And also the duration is different. For countries like the UK, it's usual for a PhD to take maybe 3 years because they have a master's degree as a requirement. So 2 years plus master's, 3 years plus PhD, making 5 years. That's why the average time to get a PhD in the United States is about 5, because they factored in the fact that whether you have a master's degree or not, you still have to take the classes anyway. So that's why it is structured that way. And for teaching assistantships, what it just means is that you teach the undergrad students, and in turn, your tuition is paid. Sometimes your health insurance is paid. You get a stipend. I'm going to talk about all of that later. So that is just what is called teaching assistantships. Usually you are like the assistant to a professor. So the professor is concerned with teaching and making sure that the curriculum is delivered. Your work as a teaching assistant, which is usually called a TA, is maybe to grade the students' classes. They would email you about questions they have. You would probably hold maybe some classes for them, tutorial sessions on the class you're taking. Another form of assistantship or funding is the research assistantships. This is where you have a company sponsoring a professor. A company might have any problem they want to solve and they need people to do research in that aspect. So your professor can get a grant, or it is usually called grant or funding. It can range from as small as tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. My lab just got a funding of hundreds of thousands of dollars to solve a problem they have. So, and then the professor in turn hires graduate students, which is prospective students, to solve this problem. So that means that compared to the teaching assistantship where you have to teach, for research assistantships, all you have to do is to do the research, and in turn, your tuition will be paid. You will also get a stipend. So many people ask which one is better, what's the difference? There's really no better or no better option. It just depends on what is available to you. For teaching assistants, you're also doing research. So in a way, it's like double work. You have your teaching responsibilities that pays your tuition and provides you with a salary. And then you still have to do your research in fulfillment of your PhD or your master's, whatever it is. So depending on what is available to you, that is actually what depends on which one you eventually get. There are also fellowships available depending on the schools and the programs. We have the special fellowships awarded sometimes to underrepresented students. If you're from maybe an Africa, they can have like a fellowship for African students just to encourage diversity. So if you are from Africa or you have an exceptional background, you can also be awarded these fellowships. Sometimes it comes in terms of like monetary awards where you get like $10,000 or $20,000 a year. in addition to whether you're a teaching assistant or a research assistant. Sometimes these fellowships can also pay your tuition and give you as like stipend also. So it depends on the school, but usually for most schools, especially for direct PhDs, you do not need to have like a separate application for these assistantships. Usually once you're admitted, you're automatically considered for these assistantships, which is also an advantage compared to so many schools where you can get admitted, but the funding is an entirely different decision to be made. So that's why I see so many people saying that, oh, I got admitted into a very good university, but I do not have funding. For the United States, things are a bit different. Next, I'll be talking about what the scholarship covers. So the tuition can be about $20,000 per semester. It can be more than that, it can be less than that, depending on where you're schooling and depending on the framework of your university. And then you have the stipend or salary, about $20,000 to $40,000. This also depends on a lot of factors, whether you offer the stipend or salary for master's students usually is different than those for PhDs. And then depending on where you are, the salary can be different. If you are living in a very expensive part of the United States, you can look towards the higher end of the spectrum because your rent is so much higher, the cost of things are so much higher, and all of that. So that is really what determines. So when people are considering multiple offers, it's not always a good idea to just go for, oh, this is going to pay me more. You also have to consider the cost of living on the state you've been admitted to. There's also the health insurance, depending on the school and depending on the type of funding your school covers. Health insurance also can be part of what your scholarship pays for. And then you have other miscellaneous fees, which are usually not a lot. Sometimes you still have to pay for this, but with your salary, the money is usually very, very little. So major requirements. When people talk about graduate school, people talk about it as if you need like 1,000 things, whereas no, the things you need are not a lot, but the preparation you just have to do towards it is what determines. So usually most people who are familiar have heard GRE so many times and they've heard GMAT. GRE is the one for STEM courses, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Usually most programs require a GRE. But with COVID, some universities are waiving the exam. Some universities will tell you don't even bother submitting because it would not use this as part of the application. Some universities are saying that that the exam is optional. And that is actually very dangerous because if your CGPA is not that great and you have somebody of comparable or even better CGPA who also wrote the GRE and did well, so in a way that person has an edge over your application. So I would say that if you can write this exam, please do write it, especially if your CGPA is not on the high side, or especially if your CGPA is not on the high side, or you just want to make your portfolio stronger. So I see so many people running towards, oh, they are waiving the exam, but do not get distracted. Sometimes even if they say that they are waiving the exam, having a high GRE score can be an advantage to you. For people in like finance, accounting, business administration, there are also some funding available. The only reason why people don't talk about this much is, for instance, there are more than 1,000 universities in the United States. A fraction of that will be taking courses in accounting and finance, compared to biology, for instance, where almost every university has a biology program. But that does not mean that people in business administration or other disciplines can't also have this requirement. So for people in accounting and finance, business administration, usually the GMAT is preferred over the GRE. The structure of the exam is usually you have the quantitative part, the verbal part, and then you have the analytical writing, but the structure for both exams is different. So whatever school, whatever program you're applying to, it is best to check for whatever they require. And then the next thing is a test of English as a foreign language, or it's just like an English proficiency test. As I mentioned before, teaching assistantship is a way for you to get funding. And As a foreign person, meaning that you are not like a citizen of the United States, they are not sure whether you can communicate in English language or you can teach in English language. So having a very high score on this test gives you an edge. Some schools would not even consider your application if you do not have this. Because of COVID and even pre-COVID, some schools, I've heard so many people saying that, oh, in Nigeria, we've been mode of communication since childhood has been English. So some schools automatically waive this requirement for students from countries like Nigeria, where we have English as our common language. But people ask what's the difference between TOEFL and IELTS. Anyone is fine. It's just that TOEFL is more of an American exam. The format, everything was made based on the American system. So most schools require TOEFL. But nowadays, now, especially with COVID and everything, some schools are also accepting IELTS. And no school would automatically reject IELTS because it's more like mostly schools in Canada are very familiar with IELTS. But some schools can say that if you write the IELTS, when you get on campus, they can give you like an additional test just to make sure that you're really proficient. The next thing is unofficial or official school transcripts. I know that getting your transcript from Nigerian universities is like a hassle. It's like you're fighting with the school system. It's very difficult, but while working to get your official school transcript, if you have your grades on the school portal, you can also use that for your application. Some people even apply when I've had people who apply maybe in like the first semester in their final year in school. And the reason is if your grades have been good from 100 level through maybe 300 level or 400 level, they can say that, okay, there's a likelihood that this person is going to graduate with a high grade. So you can be admitted even if you had not done with your bachelor's degree, as long as your transcript can show your strength. Another thing is statement of purpose or personal statement. This is also just to explain, okay, what was your motivation to even study the course you're studying? Why do you want to study in the university? What professors have you been looking at? This is just an essay that kind of puts everything you have in your portfolio together. And when people, for statement of purpose of your personal statement, if for any reason you don't have a high CGPA, you can also include it in your statement of purpose that something happened in your second year in school. That is why your CGPA is quite low. American universities are very understanding. They understand that not everybody has a smooth academic career. Different reasons can cause you not to have, the highest CGPA. I've had some of my students write explicitly that I might not be the person with the highest CGPA amongst the applicants, but I have this research strength. This is what happened that caused this. So statement of purpose is your chance to just explain everything you have on your profile. And then some schools require writing sample. This is usually for maybe people, if you're going for like a master's in English or something, they want to see if you can really write. So some courses, they request the writing sample or just an extra writing material just to show that you really can write in whatever field you're trying to apply to. And then you have the academic CV or resume. And do not think about this too much. When I was applying for graduate school, I had never worked. I do not have the copy of the academic CV I submitted, but the only thing I had on there was I'm a BSc graduate, nothing more. I'm not even sure if I had any volunteer or any leadership experience or anything like that. So don't overthink this. Most schools would understand that some people are new graduates and they do not have a working experience. So do not think that that automatically puts you at a disadvantage. One thing I would recommend, however, is if you've done research, especially your final year thesis, or if you're in university right now, take your final year thesis seriously, because whatever research experience you have would probably be based on that. They do not recognize you saying that, oh, we did chemistry 203, that was an experiment. They usually don't recognize that as a research experience. So what gives you an edge is your final year thesis. So if you're in school right now, take that very seriously, and don't just rush through it, because if you intend to apply for graduate school, that would play a really important role in the kind of schools you apply to and the success of your graduate school applications. Then the letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are usually submitted by your professors. So usually for most schools, once you're filling in your application, you include the emails of these professors, and then the school sends them an email that, oh, so person has put you as a recommender. Then they will ask your recommenders to submit their letters. What I would say is, number one, do not make sure that you tell your recommenders beforehand that you would be using them for your recommendation. So it's not like they see this email and they're like, who is even this person? Two, make sure you use people that are very, very familiar with you and people who are interested in your success. Not all your lecturers would like you, not all your lecturers would want you to succeed, not all your lecturers would be interested in seeing you go to graduate school. So request for letters of recommendation from people you are very sure are concerned about your success. And the reason why I say this a lot is, no matter how much strength your overall application is, no matter whether you're the best graduating student or you have a 4.9 out of 5 CGPA, if a recommender writes that you're not a good student or your work ethic is bad, that could automatically be a red flag on your application, because no university wants to admit somebody who would be a liability to them. So make sure that whoever professor, it does not matter with their ranking. If someone is still a lecturer and you have maybe a very high rated professor in the department, but it's the person who is just starting his career that is really interested in your success and would be willing to put in a good word for you, it's better to do that rather than go for somebody who would not speak a good word for you. So, myth, truth, and falsities. Do you need to graduate with a first class degree, a very high CGPA or percentage? The answer is no. There are so many people who are graduating with their first class and they would still get rejected, because everything you have is a portfolio. Everything you have is a profile. It's not that, oh, you have the CGPA, automatically you get accepted. They look at your overall profile, your research experience, your recommendation letters, the statement of purpose you've written. These are all the things that contribute to the success of your application. And then, are the scholarships only for STEM students, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? The answer is no. There are so many scholarships available for people in business administration, people in arts, people in education, so many fully funded scholarships available. But the reason why you don't hear it that much is not all schools have these programs, but some schools that do also offer these scholarships for them. And then, are graduate school applications complicated? It depends on you as an applicant. When I would not say that it does not require work, graduate school applications is a full-time job. When I was doing mine, like for the whole about 5 6 months, I had nothing on my plate except my applications, because it takes time to send emails, to hear feedback from schools, to make sure that your documents have gotten there, and there's just like a lot of process. And the reason why you hear so many people saying that, oh, this has taken me 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, is sometimes people don't have the right mentorship to do these things, and they just go on Google, look for any information, or just have separate information all from different places. And that could, if someone tells you this is right, another person is saying that is wrong, that could mess up your application. So yes, it does require work, but if you are under the right mentorship and you're ready, this should not take too much time, and it should not have a lot of complications. Is the application and visa processing time very long? For me, it took roughly about less than 6 months for me to get everything processed. And like I said, because I put in the work, I knew I wanted this, I knew it's not easy. So I made sure I prioritize this. What you give to your application is what you get out eventually. And because of the framework of the system in America, if you want to study for August next year, for instance, August 2022, most applications would end by December this year. Only very few, you see them saying January or February. So that means 1 year before you plan to resume, you have to start your application and get everything you need in. So you have to plan ahead. It's not that, oh, you just wake up one day and say, okay, I want to go for the next available term. Usually they give funding, and some schools do not even take students in January. So the most common term is fall semester, and that is usually August. So it's like most schools take applications only August each year. So you have to factor that time in your applications. And why should you give this your best shot? If you want a graduate school degree or what the career you want, we just look around, you look at your environment, whether you're in Nigeria, and you're just sincere with yourself that there's nothing for you in that country. This is an opportunity for you to get world-class quality education, and then you're exposed to as many degree opportunities as you want. Do you have to do this alone? No. So one reason why I started my company, the Graduate School Hub, is to give mentorship for people, because you see people even who have very good degrees, they just don't know how to go about this. And as I listed that, okay, there are just 5 or 6 requirements. There are so many little tiny details that determines whether you get, admitted. So that is what I do at my company at the Graduate School Hub. I give personalized graduate school mentorship to people. For my mentees, I work with them personally, which means that the schools I would choose for you are schools based on your strength, based on your overall profile. So it's not like you have this long list of schools that apply to everybody. So I work with you. I will tell you the truth about your application, tell you the truth about your profile, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're submitting the best application that reflects your strength. That is what I do at the Graduate School Hub. The best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, or you can also send me an email if you have any question or you have any inquiries to make. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you for listening. And that will be the end of my presentation today.
Wow, it's been an amazing session so far. Thank you very much, Ms. Raheemat. I learned a lot, and I believe our leaders also learned as well. So I think it's safe to go on a break now. Then when we'll come back from that break, in 5 minutes we'll take questions, and then we'll conclude for the day. That's fine with you, ma.
Yeah, that's okay. So what time are
Awesome.
we coming back? What time?
So we'll come in just 5 minutes from now. That should be 6:30. Let's come in 6:33.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you.